Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth, those who are watching us online. Welcome to our public work session today on December 9th. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge our city staff who is with us today, and thank you all for being here. Also want to take a moment to welcome Mr. Carter, Stephen Carter, our city manager, our interim city attorney, Mr. Derek Challenger, and also our city clerk, Miss Deborah White. Good to see y'all.
Good evening.
And I also want to send a greeting to everyone for the most wonderful time of the year. I hope everyone is getting prepared for the holidays and getting all the things done that needs to be done. Now, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant.
Present.
Dr. Dotson.
Here.
Mr. Hugel.
Present.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Ms. Thomas. Here. Mr. Tillage.
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Mr. Carter, sir, you have the floor.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. We have a few presentations this evening. First up is the YMCA, followed by the Retirement Board, and then our Public Works Department with a bulk refuse collection presentation. But first on deck is YMCA. Miss Michelle.
Yes.
There she is.
Hello. And,
All right.
our president and CEO, Mr. Anthony Walters, will be doing the presentation.
All right. Well,
today.
please take the podium. I think
So, Mr.
Ms.
Wells.
White already have you queued up.
See you,
so
sir.
It's good to see you, sir.
Oh, good to see you as well. That throws it.
Yes.
Mind if I test it?
They'll trust you.
It's okay. I'm used to it.
Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
Let me first start off by saying good evening to all of you. Let me acknowledge Mayor Glover. Thank you for having us this evening.
Absolutely.
City Manager Stephen Carter.
Here.
The esteemed city officials sitting around the table, esteemed city council members, all those here in attendance, good evening and thank you for engaging the YMCA of Southampton Roads as listed here. I'm going to try to play DJ and speaker all at the same time. Hold this down. As previously stated, my name is Anthony Walters. I have the pleasure of serving as the president and CEO for the YMCA of Southampton Roads. It is definitely a privilege to be here in Portsmouth, a city whose vision for safety, belonging, and empowerment aligns so closely with the work that we do. And I can tell you that Mayor Glover's been very poignant with me in our conversations about those things. The Y has been a part of that story for a very, very long time. The Portsmouth YMCA was chartered in 1888 and served this city through generations of change, challenge, and progress. In 1946, the Chestnut Street YMCA, now the Effingham Street YMCA, opened its doors and became a vital anchor for the surrounding neighborhoods. Together, these two Ys have stood with Portsmouth for well over a century and have helped strengthen qualities this community is known for. That includes hope, connection, and opportunity. Every day you can see Portsmouth's mission reflected inside of our YMCAs. Children learn to swim, seniors stay active, teens find mentorship, and families find support. These moments enhance quality of life, create a sense of belonging, and foster a safe and inclusive environment. This is at the heart of the city's mission, and it's at the heart of our work as well. What you see in front of you is a bit of our history and timeline. The Y, if you can imagine, was founded in 1844. Young people on the streets of London, almost 175 years ago. Not much different than how we are today. Kids running buck wild on the streets of London. And they are doing that a little bit so here in the Hampton Roads community. Here in the United States of America, the Y took root as well. inspiring a wave of local movements that power our communities. And of course, that took place also here in Portsmouth. We have over 2,600 YMCAs today, over 11 million members nationwide, and the YMCA at Southampton Road serves over 220,000 people annually. We have local membership and participation. We have local centers, and I just told you about the founding dates of those. But from the beginning, the Y stood out by welcoming people from all walks of life, much like the table you sit around today, very diverse, very inclusive. That spirit remains so today. But we had to evolve, the society did, and so did we. In the early 1900s, boys and older men filled the YMCA, but after World War I, women and girls joined in growing numbers. By the 1960s, the Y became a hub for families, a role we proudly carry forward today. It's a place where civil rights movements were constructed, plans were made, civil rights movements were carried forward. What makes the Y very, very unique is its structure. We're not a top-down organization. We are a nonprofit, contrary to maybe what some believe. But we are focused in on what you see here today: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. We have our Vision 2030 plan that we are focused on, which connects community, empowers youth, and we are inspiring hope. The YMCA of Southampton Road serves, as we said earlier, over 220,000 people annually across this region. We have 26 locations across Southampton Roads and in Northeast North Carolina, and up to and through the Eastern Shore. What's most important about that is we are led by a dedicated amount of volunteers who provide fiduciary responsibility in our corporate board, but also locally at each one of our centers. They have their own advisory board, they provide local leadership, and they stay very rooted in their community, providing voices to our mission, our vision, and our values. That's something we're very, very proud of. You may have heard at one point in time that we had two different kinds of YMCA. That's not really a secret around here, but we're very, very proud to have completed a merger of that YMCA with the YMCA at Southampton Roads. So in 2018, the Portsmouth YMCA merged with the YMCA at Southampton Roads, uniting a community where everyone's valued, welcomed, and connected. Volunteer-led, as we talked about before, with two advisory boards representing the Portsmouth YMCA and the Effingham communities. We are unified in that association, responding to the needs of Portsmouth as they arise. Really, really proud. That took a very, very long time to do, but we're very, very happy with how that has come to fruition. We are a community anchored in Portsmouth. We're reliable with resourcing for families, working parents, teens, and older adults, a contributor to community health and social connection, the economic impact. We are an entity that brings on staff into our workforce by droves. We have employed approximately 850 local residents into our YMCAs, supporting the workforce by providing child care access and help reduce long-term health costs with preventive programs that help keep people active through our health and wellness activities. We have volunteers, partners, and community groups who use our Ys to support youth, expand access to resources, and create a safer and more connected Portsmouth for everyone. Some of our areas of impact and key programs are youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And this focus is very evident in some of the programs that you see listed here on the right. These are just small samples of the programs and services that we provide, but widely known for. So before and after school programs, preschool, youth sports, which I know you're keenly interested in, swim lessons and water safety. We have programs that are really important. We have a lot of water that we're surrounded by in this area. We think it's really, really important to make sure that no kid drowns on our watch. So we do a lot of swim lessons to make sure that's the case. As stated about the history of the Y, kids were running around. They needed somewhere to be. Teens were significantly the culprit of that. We make sure that they have somewhere that they can be active and engaged. Health coaching and motivation, group exercise, Live Strong for some of our cancer survivors. Programs are established to make sure that those things can come to life. And you can pick a Y, any Y. You come in the morning or midday, and you're going to see our active older adults being engaged, and it's their Y during those times. Don't try to get in their way. Volunteerism, advocacy, critical need response, and bridge building. I'm always proud to see us take a stand on some of these things, but I don't think it's a whole lot to argue about when it comes to child advocacy and making sure that our children are safe. That's something we put our flag in the ground for, and we go to great lengths to make sure that our representatives, delegates, etc., understand how important it is to make sure children come first and are protected. Our cause and our case, we think, is a powerful bullhorn of what we stand on. Our cause is to strengthen the foundations of community. And while we do that in 27 different branches, the strength of our union are the people. Those 220,000 people are what represents the Y. It's the advocacy that those individuals have. The last two words of our mission statement are for all. And we are very, very proud of that, that we bring people together to represent that mission statement. We also believe that the community is built on relationship and connection, and that when you come into the YMCA, we might be very fancy dressed tonight, but when you get on that treadmill, you get in that pool, you have on workout gear and swim trunks, swim bathing suits, and we're all just one community trying to get healthier. And that, for me, is what a community is all about. Our Vision 2030 plan has 4 strategic plan goals that I just want to simplify for you. You can read there on the screen. We want to be the catalyst for connection and unity. Not many malls anymore where people kind of come together, but when you come into that YMCA, you're going to see your friends. Increased philanthropic engagement and service. There's a lot of cases that you can give to. We think ours is a really compelling one. We want to develop leaders and change makers. A lot of places that you can go to see where the community comes together. Go over there to that football field or that basketball court and watch those parents coach those kids. And you'll see some amazing things happening there. Really unique is when you watch other young people coach other young people. That's also very interesting to watch as well. Particularly when you're hiring some of those young people, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. They're developing life skills right in front of our eyes. And we want to transform lives through enhanced member experiences and innovative programs. And some of those things we listed for you already, but those are important to us and hope they're important to you. Drowning prevention, we had a partnership with the Portsmouth Public Schools already. We want to make sure every second grader knows how to swim. And as we said, we don't want any young person to drown on our watch. This year, our Portsmouth YMCA continued a powerful partnership with PPS to ensure that every second grader learns essential water safety skills. We provided over 1,200 students hands-on instruction at the Y with safety around water programs. They built confidence and helped to prevent drowning. Portsmouth Public Schools contributed $10,000 to cover transportation, which removed a major barrier for families and ensured all students could participate in that. This initiative reflects what our Ys in Portsmouth do best, which is respond to community needs, remove barriers, and help young people thrive. For many of these students, this is their first experience in a pool, and it opens a door to a lifetime of safety, of confidence, and of possibility. We provide this life-saving program through that partnership and generosity of this community, and we're really, really proud of it. We offer free summer team memberships. I try to imagine if we didn't do that, and it's not a great thought, trying to think about our young people, our teens running around with nothing to do. There's a saying that idle hands are a devil's workshop. And so we want to make sure that they have something to do and that they're very busy. We provided 164 free summer team memberships at our Portsmouth and Effingham YMCA's. This initiative was created to help reduce youth violence and increase access to safe, supervised activities during those hours when teens are the most vulnerable. Our partnership with Police Chief Jenkins has been an essential part of that situation. Together we focused on the Effingham area, which could be described at times as fragile. By opening our doors and offering meaningful programs, we're giving teens a place where they feel supported, connected, and safe. Community partners also step forward in powerful ways. Our LEFCO partnership recognized the need for a dedicated space and funded and built a new teen center at the Effingham YMCA. And you can see our esteemed mayor and our executive director, Aisha Williamson, right at the center of that ribbon cutting. We're really proud of that moment. Across both of our Portsmouth branches, these efforts show what happens when a community works together to invest in its youth. The Y is proud to be a part of that effort, offering teens encouragement, structure, and a place to thrive. We're supporting our neighbors by offering monthly food pantries, food bank mobile pantries, and senior-focused wellness and social connection programs. This year, our Portsmouth Y strengthened our community commitment by caring for our neighbors who face food insecurity or isolation, especially our active older adults. Each month, volunteers lead a food pantry at the Effingham Y on the third Saturday, creating a reliable source of support for families and seniors who count on these groceries to stretch their budget. In addition, the food bank's mobile pantry brings fresh, nutritious staples directly to our community. By hosting this resource at our Y, we help remove barriers like transportation and ensure that older adults can access healthy food very close to home. Our Y senior-focused classes and gatherings offer more than exercise. It just brings people together. It gets them away from isolation, and it brings belonging. Affordable and accessible childcare is something that we really take seriously, and you'll see all of our Ys focused on it. It's really a focus here in Portsmouth for us. Just some stat lines that you should know. Virginia's working families spend on average for dual income families, almost 12% on childcare, while single income families almost 41% on that same item. Across Virginia, including right here in Portsmouth, our families face a critical shortage of childcare, especially for ages 0 to 5, for after-school hours. And the Y's filling that gap by providing safe, reliable spaces that supports academics, character development, and social skills. And for working parents, these programs are more than convenient, they're absolutely essential. Childcare costs continue to place a significant strain on family. In Virginia, dual income, as we stated, 12%. And then for single parents, 41%. Across our region, the YMCA Southampton Road serves over 10,000 children in licensed child care programs. And 1 in 5 of those families receives a Y scholarship. Last year alone, we provided over $1.6 million in scholarship support from our Y that our volunteers and members help raise. These investments help parents stay employed, help children grow with confidence, and strengthen the overall stability of our communities. Our Portsmouth YMCAs are proud to play a pivotal role in meeting this urgent need and supporting families who depend on us every single day to provide care. There are currently 125 children in our preschool and after-school programs at Portsmouth Y and 94 children in our care at the Effingham location this week. Of those 219 precious children, 187 are there because of their family's need to receive financial assistance to help with affordability. It's real data in real time that we take very, very seriously. So where are we now? As we look to the future of our Portsmouth Ys, we recognize both the strengths of our presence and the limitations that we're working to overcome. The Effingham Y remains an essential resource for our families, for our teens, for our older adults, and yet The geographic location, as I've spoken to Mayor Glover about, is aging, and it's limited in how effectively we can serve. Our transportation continues to be one of the biggest challenges that Portsmouth families face. We know that you understand that as well. Many of our young people simply cannot reach Y safely or consistently. Councilman Dotson pulled me aside and already talked to me about that at one of our Y events, so he and I are paying very close attention to that as well, and trying to help those families bridge that. These barriers also affect parents who rely on dependable childcare and after-school options to stay employed, most importantly. Our current building constraints also make it difficult to expand in areas that Portsmouth has identified as high priorities, including teen engagement, childcare, senior health, and food security. Even with strong demand, the physical capacity of our facilities restricts how many people that we can serve. These realities guide our focus moving forward. We're committed to strengthening access, expanding programs, and building partnerships that allow every Portsmouth resident, regardless of location or income, to benefit from the Y. Mayor Glover, that should sound very familiar.
Indeed it does.
Yep, you told me that. This is a movement for growth through collaboration and bold planning so that we can increase our impact where it's needed most. We want to continue to reimagine Portsmouth, just like we know that you're working every day hard to do yourself, and you're doing a great job at it. We are intentionally reimagining the footprint in our Portsmouth YMCAs as well, so we can better meet the needs of our community. And our goal is simple. We want to increase accessibility for residents in every neighborhood, particularly those who face the greatest barriers to reaching the Y today. We're exploring modern, efficient models that allow us to serve more people more consistently. This includes evaluating every facility design, location, and program delivery so we can expand our reach without adding unnecessary obstacles for families, teens, or older adults, without increasing prices, without adding burden to our members as well. Just as important, we're aligning this work with the city's priorities, and we've paid close attention to your plan and strategies. Whether the focus is youth safety, working family support, senior health, or equitable access to community resources, our efforts are designed to complement the city's vision for a Portsmouth that embodies hope, resilience, lifelong learning, and innovation. I believe, and our team believes, we can build a future where every resident can belong and contribute. The Y seeks a partnership with the city to improve efficiency and reduce duplicative costs. We seek a stronger footprint in Portsmouth, a high-touch youth and teen engagement environment, greater access to childcare and family support, and efficient use of city and YMCA resources to reach and have greater impact to residents. I want to pause there and see if there are any questions. I'm grateful for the time that you've allowed the YMCA of Southampton Roads. I want to thank our Executive Director, Aisha Williamson, Dr. Aisha Williamson, who serves on the front line every single day with her team in the Effingham and Portsmouth YMCAs. We have many of our team members here with us to support the conversation we're having tonight. And I want to thank you for your leadership that you provide to the great city of Portsmouth on a day-to-day basis. We're very grateful for what you do here. We've seen tremendous leaps, bounds, and progress here in the city. I love hanging out in this city. And I told the mayor that this is where I'm going to have one of my most significant events, birthday parties, is going to be here. And so I'm really proud of, if you haven't heard this, I'm proud of you as leaders and volunteers. And I want you to continue to do the great work that you do. So on behalf of all of us at the YMCA of Southampton Roads, thank you for what you do as leaders of our community. And with that, I'll pause and take any questions that you have.
Okay, so Councilman Dotson, sir, you have the floor. Can you
So
pose a challenge?
every time you and I connect, you solve a problem for me. So thank you very much for your service and for your service to the city. And like I said, transportation that we've been talking about is a #1 problem because the programs you have are excellent. Now, I don't know that we've solved it yet, but I'd love to have more discussion with you. on that topic. And thank you for helping out the people I've sent you.
Thank you.
Mr. Challenger.
I just wanted to thank you. I'm one of the members. I go to the location in Portsmouth, and it's one of the few places where I go and I can see a cross section of people. They're progressing. I mean, I see people who are school age all the way up to senior citizens, and they're all utilizing the facility. I also want to praise you as it relates to child care, and I know that's a big deal, and how often you are available even in bad weather and everything else, and I know that's a very needed thing for people who to work. So I just wanted to thank you and your team for everything that you're doing. It's recognized.
Certainly appreciate that. Thank you for your membership as well. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Moody.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm particularly interested and glad that you have the swimming part for our school kids. You know, as a waterfront community, we need to teach all of our children how to swim, so not a single one drowns. My other question, we all know the acronym of the YMCA is the Young Man's Christian Organization. How does that still manifest itself in your mission on the Christian part?
Oh, we have a significant focus on Christian emphasis, but it's really in our mission, vision, and values, in our behavior. And so what we talk about as a staff team is how do we exemplify those behaviors. We think that regardless of religion, that there are some consistencies in behaviors of those religions and backgrounds. We believe in welcoming and inviting all to the table. And those characteristics, we have four, and a fifth, character values that are taught and practiced at each one of our YMCAs, through all of our programs that talk about character, honesty, faith, respect, responsibility, and you'll see those flags flying high in each one of our YMCAs, and we think that's where Christian emphasis, Christian values are based and are practiced throughout every background. We do recognize that people come from all walks of life, all faiths, all backgrounds, and so we respect that and want to make sure we create space for that to be respected at all turns of our practices and policies as well.
Great. I'm also glad to see that Churchland Y is now part of the overall YMCA community. When that opened, I used to travel to Richmond a few times a week. So when the Y in Churchland opened, I said, great, I joined it. So my first trip to Richmond, I go into a YMCA in Richmond. They say, oh, we don't recognize that. So I'm glad now that it is part of that family.
It is.
So,
reciprocity nationwide.
yes.
Vice Mayor Moody. Yes, sir.
That was definitely a good move.
Thank you, and hopefully, if you ever have any issues with that, please don't hesitate to give us a call, but it should be widely accepted.
Well, I don't run quite as often. This goes back a few years ago, back when I used to run around the track inside there.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation and for the YMCA partners that came to present to us today. I echo the sentiments of the YMCA being a vital part of our community here in Portsmouth. Again, coming from the school board, our schools that have swim teams but no place to swim, and being able to utilize some of the pools at the Y for their swim practice has been very crucial, as well as the partnership with PPS in the second grade free swim. I do think I wanted to go to the slide and just kind of follow up with some questions for you. We have a lot of, I think, alignment and what you presented with your strategic goals and where we're working on our strategic goals here in Portsmouth for 2026 to 2030, with the whole premise of connection and unity. And one of the things we're floating around as one of our pillars is safe, connected, and thriving communities. And so when you ask for this, what the Y is seeking in terms of partnership with the city to improve efficiency and reduce duplicative costs and a stronger footprint in Portsmouth, can you give me some examples of that, of how you partner with other cities? I think we have some goals that we want to also increase our opportunities for recreation and connecting communities and swim and childcare. So how have the Y partnered with cities in other ways to align with the partnerships that you're requesting here?
Sure. Can I give you an example about your city?
Yeah.
You have a sportsplex.
Yep, that's where I was going. Yep.
And again, I'll be completely transparent. I approached Mayor Glover and said, one of the things that we do really, really well is we operate facilities. And maybe one of the gifts or the curses about that is that we have to operate that in perpetuity. And but what it does do for you is it takes that expense, that operating expense away from you in perpetuity as well. And so the initial investment is on the front end from a capital standpoint. We've had this happen before in other areas, and so in Currituck, North Carolina, the county built the building.
That one, okay.
And we operate that operation ongoingly. So their cost was more on the front end in partnership with us, but we operate it. We take on all the expense of that operation ongoingly every single year, but it's mutually beneficial for them. They've given their residents a place to recreate, swim, gym, before and after school programs, places for their volunteers, or places for their senior center to cohabitate as well. But we operate that facility. And there's a few instances in that vein that can be duplicated or replicated, but it's really a partnership. It's a great partnership for that community. And so I see an opportunity for us to at least have that kind of conversation where you're not dealing with the overhead, the human capital, the occupancy costs ongoingly forever. So there are things like that can be discussed, and we're open to doing that. And I think we have a YMCA that's not reaching its full potential for a number of different reasons, as I stated earlier. But I just wonder, what if the Y can bring their expertise to the table in that space in partnership with the city in whatever fashion that looks like, to operate a facility, something we do fairly well, versus it being something that the city has to take on long term.
Okay, thanks for giving some examples with the Currituck, so in what you were envisioning with those two bullets. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Thomas.
Councilman Hugh.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to follow up on the question that Councilwoman Thomas asked around partnering with the city. So it sounds like you don't have an active partnership with our Parks and Recs team.
Not currently.
Okay, and what about with Portsmouth United? Because Portsmouth United has kind of become our group to untangle, look for duplicative things and kind of unscramble that. Are you all plugged into Portsmouth United?
My entire team back there is nodding, yes, we do. And so,
Okay.
we have a rapport with them and have some programs and services that are attained.
Okay. So I appreciate that you all provide free summer access for teens. Do you also provide summer teen jobs?
Yes.
Okay, because one of the things that we've invested in the last few years anyway is looking for jobs for our teens to help get them off the street. I mean, they like free activities, but they like it even better when they get paid.
Thank you for that, Councilman. So it's both and for us. And in fact, what we're working on as we speak is a more robust sort of 360 version of that kind of program where there's internship shadowing experiences and ultimately a job that can be contiguous in nature for them to think about, do they want to do X, Y, or Z from a collegiate standpoint or trade. And so we're working with all the area universities on what that can look like. And being resourced for that so that they do get paid. So the Y wouldn't get paid for that. They get paid for it, but we would provide the job for that to occur. So we're in the middle of trying to make sure that we solidify that partnership and relationship. We've been invited to apply for that grant and receive it, but we have a relationship right now with Eli Bracey in Portsmouth Public Schools, and so he's sitting on the committee that works with us with our program services in that space. So this is just, it's not if, it's just completing that process.
Okay, well, and again, I extend our thanks to you and your team for spending a little bit of time with us this evening.
Well, we're grateful to you, Councilman. Thank you all for just giving us a few moments.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Mr. Walters. I would love to share that we have been Y members for ages through very many different stages of life. So, including my youngest, who just completed the 2nd grade swim lessons and happened to be the week of her birthday, and she just thought she won the lottery. Going to swim every day that week was not only really important for kids that grow up around water, but also just a really great way to spend part of their day. So thank you for that. All 3 of my kids learned to swim at the Effingham YMCA, and it's just been a wonderful experience. I also, when I stopped working full-time and transitioned to be a stay-at-home mom for some time, found a lot of community in the Y that was really important to me during that difficult time, and having childcare and people and access was, it's another facet that is important. Like you said, malls are gone, and that's kind of a throwback to think of that we used to get socialization there, but that was really important for me during that phase of life. So I have a 14-year-old who is too young to work, but is part of that young teen group that needs to get out a little and gain some independence, but isn't quite there ready to be paid yet. So I think that's an interesting part of this conversation. And I love that you are offering youth programming because it's important to kids throughout the city, particularly in neighborhoods where they need safe spaces. So can you give us an example of youth programming that maybe we don't have yet in Portsmouth because of some of our limitations, but maybe some ideas of what's out there that we could maybe look forward to?
Sure. We have, I just wrote down as you were talking, we have a counselor in training, a CIT program, in case your 14-year-old's interested, that can get your 14-year-old ready for work and potentially interested in a Y career or Y job, or just get some practice at it, so that he's engaged and involved all day long. But we have a few things that would be interesting to what I call a sort of young teen or middle teen before they get to the place where they only want to do what they want to do versus what you would like for them to consider. We have youth in government. This would be obviously applicable to the things that you're dealing with today, but it's a long-standing program initiative inside of our YMCA that kind of gets them ready for healthy discord that is, things that they're thinking about, that things that you're talking about. But that's a Y staple in our history of Y programs and curriculum. Teen Leaders Club, so we have multiple YMCAs that have a Teen Leaders Club, and they get to decide the things that they want to do. And multiple versions of our YMCAs have that program. So we're happy to share some of those concepts with you and advertise that. Last time we met with Mayor Glover and team, we indicated that we would, get access to some of your website opportunities, and said we'll forward anything that we have to, in a timely way, be able to advertise some of the opportunities that exist for all residents, citizens, young people, and the like. So we're happy to present that forward.
Councilman Tillage?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you for the presentation. On the affordable and accessible childcare page slide, you made mention to, of course, the 12% for dual family incomes and 41% for single family incomes. Outside of financial barriers, what is your biggest barrier for childcare that you've seen in Portsmouth?
Yeah, that is the biggest barrier. It's access to it. And it's the issue across all of our YMCA's. It's, you know, we are right now we're discussing our own version of, are we equipped inside of our YMCA's to serve those needs? Right now, it's sort of situated. Portsmouth YMCA is probably a great example. It's one of the few YMCA's that has classrooms for that. But we have, in many instances, not just for the YMCA, but across our region, childcare is directly connected to workforce development. And so all of our YMCA's, we're discussing how do we make sure that we're prepared to serve the 0 to 5 situation so there isn't sort of a bottleneck on the ability to get inside of childcare so I can get to work. I mean, which are just real things in general. So that is the barrier. It's access to it so that I'm not on a waiting list, or if there's one of two parents who now can't work because childcare is not available to them is what we're talking about. It's an availability issue. And so that availability issue is a workforce development issue which prevents people from moving to Portsmouth. So the domino just continues to be sort of moving down, which prevents our whole region from growing and developing and allowing taxpayers to come in here and grow our city. So, I mean, that's important to all of us, but it starts with the basic sort of Maslow's theory of needs is we just need to have somewhere for our kid to be from this time to this time, and no one's available to do that. And so we want to have our infrastructure ready to deliver on that. We need to have, again, I'll go back to Councilwoman Thomas's question. Is our Effingham YMCA currently situated and prepared to deliver on that? It's questionable. Could the Sportsplex be somewhere that we could partner to really create our wildest dreams? I think so. I think it could be that. And we, in that partnership, could create childcare facility, education facility, teen center. We could probably solve all the needs and be responsible for running it so that we don't have that accessibility issue. We don't have idle time on our hands for our teams out there. There's a lot of things I think that we could accomplish by working together and solving some of that.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the point you made about workforce development going hand in hand with childcare. I mean, that's a real situation. And so, for the families that are participating in the childcare, is it like a sliding scale on how they receive funding? Okay.
Yes. That's the short answer.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you have an approximate cost of how much it costs per child to provide childcare?
Again, sliding scale.
Well, just in general for that, the average, let's just say student X, right? Regardless of background, how much does it cost to actually provide childcare to a child, regardless of assistance?
Yeah, it's going to range. It's going to range. On average, $600-700 a week. On average, just really depends. We are DSS eligible as well, so it really just depends on your background.
All right, thank you.
Income background.
Vice Mayor.
Question on membership rates for families. Is that indexed to income levels, or how does that work?
Yeah, our normal rate is on average for a family in the $90+ range. But yes, it's indexed. It's on a sliding scale as well. And so we do
a sliding scale according to the number in the family or your income level?
Income level.
Okay.
So, but it's not necessarily based on just how much you make. It's a debt to income ratio that is utilized in that mix. So you could be, your career could be amazing, your job could be amazing, but it's about a formula around debt.
Is that paid on an annual basis, monthly basis?
Monthly.
Monthly?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes, just to add on to that conversation about the workforce, childcare, I do know that the Y also partners with regional partners, Centera, CHKD, where those employees get a discounted rate at the YMCA, and I feel like that's a partnership that helps encourage workforce development, childcare. But to the point that we started talking about rates, in your example that you provided with Currituck, and if there was some type of partnership with the city, does the YMCA, and if this is in the proper form, if this needs to be further discussed, does the YMCA's pay structure align with the city's pay structure? Because, and I ask that because, like with our city recreation, our citizens get a deep discount of being a part of those recreation facilities to encourage more participation. So in your examples, how have you all kind of handled that structure? And if that's something that we might need further discussion about, that's fine outside of this
I think it can
forum.
be further
Okay.
discussed. I think it's, there's no idea off the table as far as we're concerned. I think the better way for me to say that would be, could we invest in that for the city? Yes, is the short answer to that. I think we could invest in that, raise dollars for it, make it a part of our case going forward, and fundraise for it on our end to make sure that we can offset or supplement that fee-based structure.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Walters, first of all, thank you. And I want to acknowledge all of the board members and folks that are here with the Y. If you would please stand up and just let us see your smiling faces. Thank you all for being here, and on behalf of the City Council, we appreciate all the work that you do in our community. I too have been experienced with the Y over the years in my youth. I don't know if I was one of those wayward young men that needed something to do, but I will say that the Y has played an integral role in my life, in my development, as well as the development of our children who learn to swim at the Effingham Street YMCA. Mr. Walters and I and some of the leadership of the Y have had that conversation about what next? Where do we go next? They're in an aging building that needs much work and renovation, and that building is historical as well. Many folks don't know the building that they're in at the Effingham Y was once a Catholic school for our African-American community. So there's history there in that building. And we've had the conversation about where do we go next, and I indicated to him our vision, as we've talked about as a council. We've invested a lot of money in the Sportsplex property, and that is the ideal spot for what we desire, based on my understanding. We need to get something done. How many years, Vice Mayor Moody, has it been since we bought that property?
At least 10.
At least 10 years. And I don't endeavor, as we have met as a council, to have us wait another 10 years to get things moving. I think where we go from here is to continue the conversation, but in a more defined way. What can it look like, right? Because at the end of the day, you do recreation. We desire to have a first-class recreation facility in our city that meets the needs that we've discussed, the swimming needs, the teen needs, our senior needs, our place to go within our city where everyone in the city is welcome. And by the way, I think we can work out a deal where everybody in the city pays a limited amount. I think that makes sense. But at the end of the day, we need a partner. Cities don't build recreation facilities very well. But I think with the right partner, we can make something happen. I'll give you a good example. Today we did a ribbon cutting at one of our senior housing developments here in the city of Portsmouth. It certainly was done by Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing through partnership with the city. But we had a number of different outside partners that helped to make that dream a reality. In this day and time, we as a city have to look at ways that we can do things efficiently, on time, but we can't wait another 10 years before, we can't wait another 10 years before we get the moving on something. So what I shared with Mr. Walters and the why was we need to have another conversation. And that conversation needs to look out, what can we do? We have some renderings of what we would like to see. What can we do as a team together? I think with the why, with the city, with the philanthropic community and others, we could get something done. And it will be innovative, it will be accessible, and it will meet the needs of the citizens of Portsmouth. So that's, as the chief visionary officer of the city of Portsmouth, that's my vision. And I'm not selling it to my council right today, but I think if you ask me what next steps are, those would be the next steps. What can we do together? We need to get in a room with my manager and, of course, his team and really talk about the space, how it could look, what it could look like. We're not making any financial commitment today, but I welcome that partnership with the Y. You all have a long, storied history in communities and making a difference, and I think it's worth us moving forward. So I'll end with that. We don't need to keep going on a discussion. I think we start by having another discussion with your team and our team and our manager and see what can we potentially do. Does that sound okay, folks? Because we're here to get stuff done.
Yeah, sure.
Get stuff done.
We're here to get stuff done. And we don't want to keep waiting, because as my mama used to say, weight broke the wagon down. Oh, depends what kind of weight you're talking about. I got it. Thank you, sir, for your time and attention. Thank you, board members, for your commitment to the city of Portsmouth, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Carter, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. The retirement board presentation is next. Do I have Mr. Brian Burnburn? Did I pronounce that right? Or close? Close enough. All right. You're on deck, sir. Please step forward and provide your presentation to my board concerning the retirement process here in Portsmouth. Pronounce your name for me, sir, so I make sure I get that right.
Hi, I'm John Morrison. I'm with Manulife John Hancock. We are the retirement plan provider for the Portsmouth Retirement Systems. So we're here to provide our annual update. We have Brian Birnbaum from Greystone, a company with Morgan Stanley. So it's kind of like a three-part update. So I'll give an overview, a brief overview of the system. I'll have a few slides on the annual valuation that we perform for the system, and then Brian will come up and he'll cover a little bit of the investment asset side of the system. So we talk about the Portsmouth Retirement System. It is a defined benefit retirement program consisting of two plans. There's fire and police and the supplemental systems. Combined, as of 9/30/2025, they have approximately $200 million in assets. That money is invested in a separate trust held outside of city funds, combined with John Hancock and Morgan Stanley. And that is to provide for the payment of current and future benefits to those retirees in the system. For 2025, there were over 11,000 monthly benefit payments during the year. And then to give you an idea of the scale, it's about $29 million that was paid out over the fiscal year. We did see an improvement in the funded status. And then we look at expenses slightly lower compared to prior year. So I mentioned there are the two systems, fire and police and supplemental. Both of these systems have been closed for over 30 years. So when we say closed, that means there are no new entrants entering the system. So any of your current employees, they would enter the VRS. So the retirement system at this point is almost entirely inactive. Benefits are provided under ordinary retirement, disability, and death. But again, at this point, primarily an inactive system. So when I say inactive, participants receiving monthly benefit payments. The retirement board meets on a quarterly basis. The board oversees the system. They get updates from John Hancock, so we provide ongoing administration, record keeping, issuing of the checks. I come to the system on an annual basis for the actual evaluation to discuss that. And then Greystone will also present on a quarterly basis to give updates on investments of funds, prudent asset management, etc. The committee itself is made up of citizens and other individuals with ties to fire and police. We have individuals from city leadership and staff that sit in on the meetings regularly. Overview. So we look at the funded status of the system. Again, I have a couple slides on a little bit more detail of this. But the two measures we look at are those assets that are held in the separate trust. Those cover the benefit payments or future benefit payments. The liability then is a representation as of the valuation date. It's the present value of that future payment stream. So I have a slide that shows some of those future benefit payments. So each year we perform a valuation where we project out a stream of payments for individuals. That gets discounted back using the assumed rate of return at 7.25%, and that represents the liability as of the valuation date. So that's the amount of funds that you would need as of that date invested at 7.25% to fully cover those benefit payments. As of 6/30/2025, we're about 75% funded. When we look at the history, we can see over the 10-year period, relatively stable. There was the blip in 2021 and back down. That's tied to market performance. So in 2021, strong market performance, and there was the economic downturn during 2022. So it kind of leveled it out. But overall, the system has maintained around 70-75% funded over the period. Typically, we like to give a little bit of benchmarking over here, just to give you an idea of where your system is relative to other public pension plans. So the average system, there's the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College provides an estimate annually of funded status of public pension plans. So their estimate for fiscal 2025 is about 77-78%, and your fund is about 74-75%. So you're tracking pretty closely with average retirement plans. I mentioned I have a few slides on the actuarial valuation. So one of the primary purposes of the valuation is on an annual basis. We perform calculations to represent an actuarially determined contribution to the city. That is the contribution that we are recommended that if made continuously will help fund the retirement systems in addition to those assets already there, and eventually will grow you to the point of full funding. The figure for fiscal year 2026 is approximately $8.9 million. That is up from where we were at fiscal 2025 from 8.1. I'll provide a little bit more detail on that shortly. And then important to note that this does not include the $11 million payment on the pension obligation bonds. That is separate from the actuarial determined contribution. A brief overview before I go into actuarial evaluation results of expenses or expected expenses in the fund for the year. Generally speaking, these are basis points relative to the size of the assets, so that we see that these are slightly lower than they were in the prior year, but overall consistent on an annual basis for the fund. I know I'm moving along here, so I'll pause before I get into the actuarial evaluation, see if there are any questions at this point. Yes, ma'am.
For 2 slides, you said...
So go the wrong way here.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that.
Nope. Is this one?
No, you're fine. You have
that one, yes. You said it has recommendations. Yeah, the ADC is recommended from your group?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, to make sure that the system is fully funded in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
Fully funded means what level?
Sure. So the gap that exists between the assets that are held in the fund and the liabilities, that's those stream of future payments. So that's where you're at 74% funded at 6/30. So that gap is what's made up with mainly contributions from the city over a period. The current funding policy of the plan is that gap is amortized over an 11-year period, so it's similar to like a mortgage payment. Mm-hmm. So that it's about $70 million as of 6/30/2025. Is amortized over an 11-year period, and then the goal of the system or the plan is that payment is made annually. That time frame decreases each year with the goal of getting to full funding. So when I say full funding, that would mean your assets are equal to your liabilities, assuming all assumptions are made or met, I should say, which they won't be because we're making assumptions about future events, but over the long run we expect those to be pretty consistent. Assuming those assumptions are met, then the assets should be sufficient to cover the liabilities of the plan.
So based on the plan, how many years left to get there?
So the current amortization period is 11 years, so it decreases annually, so 2037.
2037?
The system to reach full funding.
What's the average age in our system?
Don't know that off the top of my head. I think it's in the 70s, given that you're primarily retirees, so participants that are receiving payments, not a whole lot of people currently active, but it is an older population.
So, okay, thank you.
Councilman Dodson, so you have the floor.
I see this line running 70-75% continuously. That formula is based on that 2037 date. How would that change if we decided to do that as, say, a 90% funding rate? Would that change the target date, or would it decrease the payments? What would be the formula change?
It would both. I mean, it would decrease the payments. So the current policy is to get 100% funded at 2037. So that gap, that $70 million is what you're amortizing over the 11-year period. So if you were to go to 90% funded, for instance, as a target, that gap would come down. Since you wouldn't be at 100% of the blue bar, you would be around 90%. So it would lower the contribution. It would obviously push out the years to full funding. But on an annual basis, it would lower the contribution. When we look at kind of our expectation of where we are, so I mentioned we're about 11 years out of that amortization period. In the short term, so say over the next 5 or 6 years, we really expect the contributions to maintain the funded level of the system around that 75% funding or so. Around, I think it's 2030, 2031, we project the system to get to about 80% funded, and then we would start to see improvements in the funded status thereafter if we continue along this path of full funding and making the actual determined contribution.
Right, so when I first joined the committee as the liaison, y'all had this big bump in the funding, and I was concerned about it then, but I understand that what I wanted this committee to be aware of is that you've tried to nominalize that contribution, even it out to an even number.
Correct.
A little more so that we could budget.
Yes, sir.
More by having an even number, by using that target number is, if I understand, around $9 million.
So we're at $9 million this year. We expect it to go up slowly to around $10 million next year, and then kind of level out in that $9 to $10 million range in the future. The smoothing that you mentioned, so when we look at the gap that exists in the funding status, there's two measures of that value of assets. There's the market value of assets. So that's when you get an asset statement, you look at that, that's the amount of funds that are held in trust. When we determine the actuarial determined contribution, we use an actuarial value of assets. So that smooths investment returns over a 5-year period, exactly for what you see here when it was 86 and then dropped down to 68. Those gains and losses that we see over that period are smoothed in a little more incrementally, so that you will have to recognize, market performance, obviously. The goal of the actuarial value of assets is to your point, allow slightly easier budgeting and smooth in some of those gains and losses over a 5-year period so that you don't see those wild swings in contributions. What we're currently seeing and why the contribution is projected to go up next year is that drop in assets, that market downturn from 21 to 22. The full weight of those losses during the year are not currently reflected in the actuarial value of assets, so we're still deferring some of those losses. Next year, those losses will be fully recognized. Brian has a slide. In the 3 years since, there have been double-digit returns around our assumed return of 7.25.
Right.
The actual value of assets, it smooths in gains and losses equally. So those positive returns are helping to reduce contributions, but they're not fully recognized in the actual value of assets. So what's happening in the interim or the upcoming is that loss is fully recognized. Some of these excess returns are not yet fully recognized, and that's why we see that slight bump in the contribution, and then eventually it levels out.
So as far as us budgeting, we should expect that variation to be reduced to less than $1 million a year, and it should remain between $9 and $10 million per year.
That's our
budgeting purposes.
yes, sir. I mean, that's our current expectation of the projections as of 6/30.
Just wanted an awareness around the table.
As an actuary, I'm required. So that'll change. So when we do the valuations annually, obviously we're subject to market conditions. The actuarial value of assets will help smooth some of those fluctuations, but they will ultimately work their way into the system. And then when we do the valuation annually, we reflect updated census. We use that as an opportunity to review assumptions that go into those projections So we will see gains and losses annually as well as we update census and assumptions.
Thank you.
Councilman Hugel.
Thanks, Mayor. So 2 questions. First, the liability forecast assumes that the payments remain flat forever?
Jump ahead.
No.
And I can- So when we perform the annual evaluation, for each participant that's in the system, we project a future stream of benefit payments. And then that's what, this is a sample of that future stream of benefit payments, and that all of those payments get discounted back to the valuation date using that assumed rate of return. For the most of the system at this point is current retirees. So correct, we assume that their pension, the benefits that are currently in pay, remain at that level, so there's no future cost of living increase included in this projection because it's not currently in the system. So for those participants that are in pay, yes, we are assuming flat payments throughout their lifetime, which gives us this stream of payments. We then discount that back to the valuation date, and this is what makes up the liability that we see on an annual basis.
Okay. So as we're having these discussions about what to do to try to help our legacy retirees, given that the assumption going forward is that their benefits are going to be flat, can you all provide us kind of a distribution of, so there are about 900 people or so in the yeah.
Yes, sir. So there's 914 total that are
So
currently receiving
914.
benefits.
So some of those 914 are making something every month.
Yes, sir.
And some of those 914 are making something every month. Can you give us a distribution of those 914? What the monthly?
Yes, sir. Yes, we have that information, so we can provide.
So
that.
you could provide us a graph that shows kind of the distribution of those payments?
Yeah, essentially like in monthly, like
Yeah.
make it like 0 to 100, 100 to 200, whatever the appropriate.
Right,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, so that would be helpful
Okay.
as we're trying to figure out, who's making what
Yep.
and who's in extremis because they're making so little and who's not necessarily in extremis because they're not making so little.
Okay. Yes, we have that information.
When is the pension obligation bond paid off?
I believe it's also tied to around 2037. It might be a year or two before,
Okay,
but they.
so it all kind of comes together in 2037. We're at 100% and the pension bond is paid off.
That the policy had those statements in that, so it's not like an arbitrary thing we're working toward. There's a policy that
Yeah.
states these things that we're dealing with.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Can I ask you to add something to his request?
Yes.
When you fulfill his request, don't just say how many are paying. Can you tell how many are actual retirees versus beneficiaries or retirees also?
Yes, we should be able to provide that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe one more thing, since we're asking, a distribution of age.
Okay.
So, how many 55-year-olds are there, and how many 95-year-olds are there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Moody.
Since our liabilities gap is in large measure determined by the market performance, how's our investment stance? Has that changed? Does that change from year to year? How would you describe that?
I would describe it by staring at Brian and.
Brian's going to handle that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian will be able to help it. Come on up, Brian. Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. The portfolio is managed according to an investment policy statement, which describes and outlines the parameters around which we can manage the assets. There's target exposures to different asset classes and strategies, and there's ranges around those targets in which we can operate. In round numbers, we have 70% invested in stocks, a little over 20% invested in bonds, and 8% in what's referred to as alternative investments. It's mostly real estate and a couple of hedge funds. So round numbers, think of 70% stocks, 30% bonds, and other stuff.
So that that ratio stays constant, or how often is that adjusted?
We look at it constantly, and there's ranges around those targets within which we can operate. I'll show you a slide in a second. At the end of June, we were at about 74% stocks. And that was a conscious decision on our part because there's a lot of momentum in the equity markets and strong momentum in the economy, despite some of the noise that we experience. It's been a very good place to be. So the overall strategy in terms of 70-30s been relatively constant. It is something that we are going to start working with the board to reevaluate, but we can go a little bit higher and a little bit lower than that 70-30 target, and that's a very fluid decision on our part.
So you make the recommendation to the board.
We have discretion. So there's two ways that we've worked with the board, and I've been involved in this relationship going back to 2016. So in 2016, we provided advice to the retirement board, and we said, hey, we think you should have 70% in stocks or 75% in stocks. And we'd give the rationale for that recommendation. But ultimately, it was the retirement's board decision on whether to take that recommendation or not. Towards the end of 2018, our relationship evolved with the city to one that is referred to as a discretionary mandate. So instead of providing advice and recommendations to the board, if we believe we should change the exposure to stocks and bonds, we have the discretion and ability to do that. We then report to the retirement board about what we've done. We talk about performance, but that doesn't need to be approved by the retirement board at this point. What would need to be approved by the retirement board is if we change that 70-30 stock bond mix. And that's the process we're just beginning to undertake with the board to see if that long-term strategy should remain the same or should it be different.
Thanks.
Sure.
And one thing I'll say is, when I participated as liaison to the board, I sat in a lot of those discussions, and even the board was in agreement with the discretionary position.
Correct.
Because it allows you the opportunity to move, because the market is fluid, and if you got to wait every time you need to make a move, then we lose out. That's part of the rationale. Is that fair?
That's absolutely correct. And there's been a massive sea change in the institutional investment world, including public retirement systems across the country, moving away from the advice model, which had really been in place since the early 70s, to one where advisors like Greystone and other firms like us now have discretion. Mr. Mayor, for the exact reason you suggest, markets are volatile, and if advisors need to wait for a regularly scheduled quarterly meeting of their clients, oftentimes you miss opportunities to either pull risk off the table or put risk on if the opportunities present themselves.
And the last thing I'll say to that is, you certainly don't need my endorsement, Brian, but Brian has been a steady hand at the helm of his organization since I came on the council. He helped educate me on a lot of things and help me understand what this stuff really is, and I appreciate that. I don't do it every day, so it's encouraging and nice to know we have a consultant that really pays attention and that really cares about the job that they do for our city. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back and talk about performance in a minute. Thank you.
Just have a few more slides. Okay. So one important thing to note when we talk about the investment mix is, this stream of payments to get that liability is discounted back at that assumed rate of return, that's 7.25%, based on that 70-30 asset allocation. To the extent that asset allocation would change and would impact the long-term rate of return, that would also impact the liabilities for the fund. So if the assumed rate of return were to come down, that would increase the liabilities because there's the return. These payments are not tied to the return. The discounting of them to the valuation date is tied to the return. So to the extent that we're assuming, I would say, a smaller growth in the assets, if you will, we would expect the liabilities to go up so that the fund, not the fund performance, the fund allocation is tied to the liabilities for the plan. So I mentioned we perform an annual evaluation of the plan. So every year we look at updates to the value of assets. We collect new census for all participants. We also use that as an opportunity to evaluate the assumptions that go into our evaluation model. This is a reconciliation of where we were from June 30, 2024 to June 30, 2025. So we have the value of assets. This is based on that market value of assets. Again, it's different from that smooth value that we use for funding purposes, but this is what you have in the fund as of that point in time. The liabilities, like I said, represent that present value. And then we can look at either the deficit that exists in two manners. One is the gap that exists, so to the assets minus the liabilities, or you can view it as a percentage, so the assets over the liabilities. And both are useful measures in determining the health of the system. The interest cost and plan experience, that's the expected growth of the system. So those stream of payments is discounted back to the valuation date. Each year, the liability is expected to grow at that 7 1/4. The first year stream falls off in those benefit payments. That's the time value of money, so you lose a year of discounting. That expected growth is in the 18 to 19 million range. And then we update for census on an annual basis. This year, we had overall loss of about 6 million, which we've seen in plan experience, really tied to a change in assumption. So as I mentioned, annually we review the assumptions. The Society of Actuaries, just as exciting as it sounds, released a new mortality table in 2025, specifically related to public pension plans. So we did update the valuation to reflect this new mortality table, which we think is a better fit given it's tied to similar participants in your fund. But they did create a small loss that's about 2%. And I have a slide later. It did increase that actual determined contribution approximately $750,000. So that 8.9 already reflects that change in liability. So that's the interest cost. Benefit payments come out of the assets and liabilities equally. So there's no impact on the deficit. The contributions from the city, that's the actuarial determined contribution. So that helps to close the gap in that funded status. The investment return, as I mentioned, we're assuming 7 1/4. We had over a double-digit return for the year. So that's primarily the reason we see the improvement in the funded status as of June 30, 2025. Again, offset by some of those liability losses that we saw. Here's a reconciliation through 9/30/2025, so similar breakdown. We did have a strong quarter, and therefore we saw that the deficit decreased further from there. We talked a little about this, so this is the actual determined contribution. That's the 9 that we expect to go up to about 10 million next year, and then kind of level out. The update to the mortality table. Two other kind of key points I wanted to mention before I turn it over to Brian are, I'll go back a little. So we did see the market value of assets decline slightly from June 30, 2024 to 2025, despite the double-digit asset returns. That does not mean that the system is underperforming. We actually, at 7 1/4, would expect to see the assets start to shrink. Given that at this point the system is primarily inactive, you're paying out benefits to retirees. In the life of a pension plan, you're kind of on the tail end of that life. You're not really in an asset accumulation mode per se. So the drop in the asset value doesn't necessarily mean that the fund is underperforming. What we expect with the contributions and over the system is these benefit payments are still a significant portion of the liability of the assets, about like 14% or so. The goal of the funding is really we're going to maintain funded status over the next couple of years. I think that was your question about what we project over the short term. But the goal is that the liabilities will shrink faster than the assets, and that's how you make up that gap. So I want to just point out that if you see a declining market value, that doesn't necessarily mean that things are not going as expected. Over time, we expect both the liabilities and the assets to shrink, but they will shrink at different rates, and that's where we're going to start to close that gap. And then we mentioned that the system of 100% funded by 2037. In the short term, we're really maintaining funded status. The contributions are more or less keeping us where we are. We expect to get to 80% funded around 2031. And then at that point, we would start to see incremental improvements in the funded status until we reach that level of full funding.
Good.
All right. That is the end of my presentation. So I'll pause for any other questions or comments before I turn it over to Brian.
No, sir.
All right, thanks so much for having me tonight.
Councilman Hugo.
So our policy is no cost of living changes to the payout until we're above 80%, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So, but your assumption is that even when we get to 80%, we're still doing flat payments?
Correct. So we're evaluating the provisions that are currently in place as of the evaluation date. So this stream of payments does not assume any increases or automatic cost of living dependent on the funded status. So that would have an impact on the liabilities.
And so...
And how much you have to contribute each year.
Yeah, so what does our policy say happens at 80%? Do we automatically then start triggering
you have the
annual
evaluation.
indexed increases, or it's a year-by-year
Right.
decision? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There never has been a policy on that.
Not since I've been on it, I'm aware.
Since I've been on council.
Gotcha.
There was a COLA, but it didn't come out of the retirement system.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was the funding source?
Yeah, the general
Just
fund.
general fund?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what we're doing anyway?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're
Yeah,
doing
it
anyway.
is.
What, do you take money out of the general fund and put into this, or
That's what I
pay it
said.
out of the general fund?
That's what ultimately is still general fund.
And the formula was 50% of whatever the general wage
We're still trying
employees
to
got.
supplement or not.
Can we, Brian, you got a question?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm just going to walk through a few slides, talk about the investment portfolio results in a little bit. I'll provide a little bit of context around those results as well. But just real quick background, I'm an executive director with Greystone Consulting, which is the institutional consulting group within Morgan Stanley. What that means is we work with big public retirement systems and corporate defined benefit plans and charities on structuring investment solutions, customized investment solutions for each one of our clients. I've been in this business for 31 years, always working with public funds and institutional investors that look like you. Just a quick commercial. We regularly participate in surveys of our clients and compare ourselves relative to other consulting firms and how they're doing relative to theirs. Participate with a third-party organization called Coalition Greenwich, and I'm happy to say that we've, in 2025, this year, the fourth consecutive year where we were rated one of the top advisory firms in the industry. And importantly, large firms, because we are a large firm. We consult over $600 billion in client assets, and so Greenwich goes through this process of looking at like firms. So for the biggest firms out there in the industry that work with the largest clients, we're happy to say that we're awarded the award for one of the best consulting firms in the industry for the fourth year in a row. Vice Mayor Moody, just to answer your question here, this takes a quick look at how the portfolio was allocated as of June 30th of 2025, the end of the plan year. I mentioned we have targets and ranges around those targets that we can operate. At the end of June, we had 74% of our assets invested in stocks, public equities, both here in the U.S. and overseas. We had about 19% in bonds and 7% in alternatives. And if you compare that relative to how other public funds are allocated, you can see a pretty stark difference related to our stock exposure and the offset being use of alternative investments. Alternative investments have gotten a lot of traction in the institutional investment world over the last 20 years. The reality is some of those strategies worked, some of those haven't, but what is always true is when you invest in alternatives, you don't have immediate access to those assets, so they're less liquid. And because we are a closed system that's, to use John's term, that's sort of at the tail end of our life, we don't have the ability to do a lot in alternative investments because we need the access to the capital to be able to meet the benefit payments that we pay each month. That's why there is this big difference in allocations. The other thing I'll say about this slide is alternative investments can mean really risky stuff and it can mean really conservative stuff. So if you make an assumption about how that alternative bucket really acts relative to public stocks and bonds, I think what you'll find is that our allocation, once you parse the alternatives bucket into conservative and risky assets, is not all that different from what other public funds are doing. The only difference is we have access to our capital on a daily basis and they don't. Okay. Here's a quick look at returns over time. The top part of this table shows the plan year returns. That's where each of those, 2013 on to 2025. That's the 12-month return of our plan as of June 30th of the year that's indicated there. So for 2025, it's the 12-month return ending June 30, 2025. And then going up the table would be 12 months ending 24, 23, et cetera. Our return net of all fees was 11% this plan year. And that's an important number because it relates to what John talked about, that 7.25% return assumption that he uses to forecast cash contributions required from the city. You can see the last 3 years have been really, really good. Yes.
Hey, Brian, what happens when, for example, in the forecast on 2022, we were negative 16? How do we make that up? Or is there such a thing as making that up?
There is such a thing as making it up, and I would argue that we've made it up and then some over the subsequent 3 years.
That's right.
But you're right. I mean, the stock market goes up and down. 2022 was a unique period in that we had historic declines in both the stock market and the bond market.
Right.
That doesn't happen all that frequently. Typically what happens is when stocks go down, bonds go up.
Correct.
But that's what made 2022 such a unique and unusual period. They were both down at historic levels.
Got it.
Importantly, when we were going through that, and when markets go up and down, we have the ability to shift the portfolio, but we're going to go up and down with the market. There's no ability to avoid this stuff because that requires you to accurately time when things are going to be bad and then get back in the market when things are going to be good. I'll tell you, if anybody says that they can do that, I'll show you evidence that nobody can do that. When we were living through 2022, we didn't change the strategy.
Right.
And because we didn't change the strategy, that's why you see 3 consecutive years of double-digit positive returns.
Good.
So, Mayor, that's how we make it up.
Thank you, sir.
The other thing I'll point to here, a couple other things. There's 13 plan year periods in the top of this table. We're not going to generate 7.25% every single plan year. The markets don't provide that. However, since 2013, we've generated at least a 7.25% return in 8 of the 13 planned years. That's over 60% of the time. The bottom part of this table looks at average annual returns over, we're getting away from plan years and we're just looking at average annual returns over different periods of time. All the way down at the bottom, since 4/27 of 2016, our group joined Morgan Stanley in the early part of 2016. That's what that reference point is. The average annual return since that period of time, net of all fees was 8.2%. A lot higher, about a percentage point higher than the 7.25% return that the actuary uses. Over the last 5 years, you can see a very similar number there. And since we took discretion, where our model and in the way we worked with the retirement board in the city changed, net of all fees 8.6%. Again, higher than the 7.25%. What that means is that from the city's perspective and the taxpayer's perspective, the ultimate cost of providing the benefits that you all provide for the retirees is reduced because the investments did a lot better than the actuaries that we would have assumed.
Right.
Okay. This is data that John went through. I'm not going to spend any time on this, other than to say he made it a point. John made it a point to say that on a cash flow basis, when you look at the amount of benefits we send out each year, in round numbers, about $28 million. City contributions are about $8 million. The net of those two is, what is that? About right around $20 million, let's call it. That's 10% of the value of the overall pension fund.
Right.
So to John's point, even if we earn 7.25%, we're sending out 10% of the value of the pension fund. So the value of the trust fund is likely to go down over time. It's only when you get to the returns, well, on the prior slide,
Right.
that you see actual assets go up because of that significant cash flow. And just to provide a little bit of perspective, if you looked across the United States, the average cash flow in the public retirement system space is about -2%. We're running about -10. Okay, that's because we're closed. We're a closed system, so not as much new active participants coming in.
Right.
And so that's why we've got the strategy we do, and it relates to that liquidity and the alternatives that I talked about earlier.
That makes sense.
Here's just a quick look, another way to look at performance. So we have access to the performance of returns earned by public retirement systems across the country. That triangle in the middle, right at the 50th percentile or the median, is our return of 11% in plan year 2025. It's average. It's right in the middle of the returns earned by other public retirement systems. If we looked at plan year 24, and I showed this to the city council last year and 23 as well, we were at the top of the distribution. We were the best returning public retirement system pretty much in the country. So we don't ever expect that to always be the case, but you know, we're right in the middle of the distribution for plan year 2025.
Good.
Net of all fees, again, that's important to keep in mind. So that's all I had, short and sweet, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions that anybody has. Maybe one thing that I will say, one more data point. So the data was as of 6/30/2025. We're almost 6 months into the new plan year, and I just looked before I came over. Our return so far in the first 6 months of the current plan year is about 6.7%. So we obviously have a half of the plan year to go, maybe a little bit more, and we'll see how the rest of the next 6 months shake out. But we're off to a pretty darn good start for the current plan.
Good point. Thanks, Brian. Councilwoman Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for your presentations. This is a lot of new information for some of us, and probably in particular for our listeners. If you could offer a very high-level summary of what all you presented tonight, I think that would be very helpful.
So, at a high level, the pension fund is doing well. It's performing as expected. And know that you have, and the citizens, taxpayers, and the council should know that somebody is, i.e. me and our team, watching this stuff constantly, always reassessing whether we're positioned well relative to how we think the future is going to play out. We have the ability to act. We do take that discretion. Again, I guess I just reiterate, things are working well, and the ultimate cost to the city of providing the pension benefits is reduced as a result of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you.
You too, John.
You ready?
Mr. Carter.
All right, last one. Mr. Gerard Roberts, our Public Works Director, is going to talk to us about bulk refuge. We had this discussion a while back. We got to bring this back again with a new decision. Thank you.
Am I good? He could do it better without.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Mr. Carter. We are here tonight to talk about our bulk collection solutions. I say solutions because I think we do have to make a decision and address illegal dumping throughout our city, illegal dumping challenges throughout the city. Oh, shoot. Our agenda tonight, we'll talk about our current operation. Our current operation consists of our bulk collection, our routing, and our operational procedures as it pertains to our bulk collection, our operational challenges. Our key issues would be equipment, fuel, labor, and our environmental consequences. But also, we'll also discuss our financial impact. Our financial impact as it pertains to how much it actually costs for the program and how we are operating today versus how we could operate in the future, and then the department's recommended next steps. All right, our current operation consists of 7 dedicated trucks, 7 dedicated bulk trucks, 4 service days, Tuesday through Friday, with 1 service day a week, with 100% coverage, street coverage. And what I mean by 100% street coverage, I mean 7 dedicated trucks go on a specific area on a specific service day, and they ride the truck. I mean, they drive street by street, up and down the street, trying to identify bulk collection or illegal dumping. The part of that collection is once the items are collected, items you may not know exactly what it is. Even though it's bulky, waste has specific designations. So some of the material can be CDD, which is construction, demolition, and debris. Some of it could be MSW, which is municipal solid waste. And some of it could be what we consider white goods, your appliances, your refrigerators, your stoves. Without proper identification or any advanced scheduling, the driver doesn't know exactly what he's picking up. So as he picks it up, his identification, he or she has the ability, because they've been doing it long enough, to know how to separate it on the truck. Those materials go to one of three disposal areas. Either goes to Craney Island, because we have a construction and debris landfill, or it'll go to the regional landfill, which is SIPSLA's regional landfill that takes construction, demolition, debris, also MSW, or it'll go to a SIPSLA transfer station, which currently right now is Ant Robotics. After that, the driver, after the disposal, the driver will go back to whatever route that he or she was on, wherever they broke off at, and then continue to ride the streets up and down, trying to identify what is considered bulky. Whatever's in the right of way, whatever's considered bulky, they will pick up and put on the trucks. This is an example of a Tuesday route. A Tuesday route where we have 7 collection vehicles out. This is off of our GPS data. And the little square boxes are stops. And as you can see, street by street, turn by turn, the drivers go up and down the streets trying to identify bulk collection or waste in the right-of-way. However, there are 7 vehicles on this particular day. This screenshot was taken right before the drivers were getting off. There are 40 stops for a 10-hour day with 7 trucks. There's 40 stops. That means 80% of the day, the driver just drove up and down the street trying to identify what was bulky and what was an appliance or what was considered illegal dumping. Operational challenges. The street by street is one of the biggest operational challenges. Street by street coverage is one of the biggest operational challenges. It puts a strain on resources. Unpredictable loads, we don't know. Without advanced scheduling, we do not know exactly what we're picking up. It's, as the mayor said earlier about inefficiency, it is extremely inefficient because that would be like the equivalent of the mailman driving up and down the road and delivering 40 pieces of mail throughout the entire city. It's extremely inefficient. Not only does it as far as our resource management goes and our strain on our equipment, it's labor, it's fuel, it's the truck going up and down being underutilized on a daily basis for four consecutive days. It also I'll talk about illegal dumping later, but it also is an environmental impact. So environmental impact because let's just say you put your bulky your collection out on a Tuesday route after the truck has went through. The collection route is Tuesday through Friday. There's a possibility that could sit until the next collection day. We do have inspectors and we do have inspectors going over on the route, but there is a real possibility that could happen. It also invites vermin, rodents, and it's a blight to the city. And if it's mixed with MSW, with rainwater, it creates leachate. And those are environmental impacts, environmental hazards. Those are real hazards. Also public dissatisfaction. You live in a neighborhood where you have residents putting out bulky collection on a consistent basis or doing renovations or contractors coming in the city dumping bulky bulky waste on the right-of-way. It creates a public dissatisfaction because no resident wants to see those type of items sitting on the curbside more than 24 hours. The economic implications is really the fuel, the labor, the cost to the program, the realized cost for the actual disposal cost, because everything we pick up, there is a disposal cost to it. Illegal dumping. Illegal dumping is a real problem within the city. I know the previous presentation we had about Brandon Square, but that is not the only place that is illegal dumping. Illegal dumping is rampant throughout the city. You have contractors come through. I'll show you some slides in the future where you can clearly tell that those are either contractors or renovations. They're dumped off in either private spots or vacant lots.
Can I ask a question about that real quick, Mr.
Yes, sir.
I mean, what's the remedy to that? I mean, how do you? I don't know what the remedy would be, but do people just disrespect our city that they think they could come and dump stuff here and there's no consequences? What is that?
I think because, just speaking, because we have allowed our residents, or just knowing that we can put it on the right of way and that they're going to pick it up, I think that is a part of the problem that we're having. So people feel freely to just put stuff on the right of way, and they know that they can call and make a complaint, and then we'll go and pick it up.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
illegal dumping, I wanted to emphasize because illegal dumping is, after looking at the C-Click fix and looking at the complaints that come in and how we schedule the complaints, 30% of the tonnage that we dumped last year was considered illegal dumping. Illegal dumping, because it's 30%, it is very costly. And the highest months were March, April, and May, which are your spring cleanings, your move-outs, your sometimes evictions, when people start moving around and, school lets out. So those were found to be the highest months seasonal. This time also a year where we have, Christmas trees and presents and whatnot. So this is a picture of a vacant lot which had installation, a pile of installation placed out in front of it. You also have, in this second picture, there are items that cannot go to Craney Island. So, like your tires, some of the material is not considered, because Craney Island is an unlined landfill. There are certain items that cannot go into Craney Island. So when the truck picks it up, he has to spend time kind of separating items, not knowing what to put where. So they'll kind of separate them on the truck, so that when they do get to Craney Island, they'll drop off what's in Craney, goes to Craney Island, and then they'll take a load to either the regional landfill or, like I said, Simpson. Here, been in the industry long enough to know that this is considered either a move out or an eviction. It's on curbside. This in the neighborhood with stormwater, if it's been sitting out for a long time, this creates, like I said, realized environmental impact. This was a private, and you can see in the picture, if it was blown up, you can see that's pretty much like drywall, construction, probably a renovation of some type, was just dumped off in illegal, and so we had to go out and pick it up. The financial impact for the program itself, a realized financial impact. If you take the base cost of collection is just the disposal piece. So it's $65 a ton to go to SIPSA, but also at the C&D, at the Craney Island landfill, it cost us a little less to dispose of waste because we own it. So if you take that and the delta, it's roughly, we came up with roughly $52 a ton to dispose of 5,199 tons of waste. That's $360,000 a year. The labor cost for 7 drivers, with an average of $52,000 a year, is $364,000. The only discrepancy I did make, and that's the fuel cost, because that $4,000 should be per truck per annual. So it's $4,000 a year per truck, and that's 8 miles per gallon. The fleet said we get fuel at $2.43, and then the average truck drives 50 miles a day on its route. Whether it picks up a load or not, it drives 50 miles a day. The maintenance cost on an average working truck that is less than 10 years, it is $15,000. Our trucks are a little older than 10 years, so that cost is higher, but just we kept the benchmark at $15,000 for 7 trucks. Administrative overhead is our customer service, the temps that we hire to answer the phones, our complaints, our inspectors, all of that. That's just, we just added a 10%, pretty much 10% overhead. We took it and we divided about all of our administrative staff that works. So that's a realized cost, and with the illegal dumping, it's about 30% of just the program itself. This is the cost as we do it today. The recommended solutions is advanced scheduling system. An advanced scheduling system actually aligns us with all of the other cities in the region, with the exception of Suffolk. Suffolk just went back to they were charging after your 12th load, but I guess they went back to another. But advanced scheduling is typically the way most cities do, and it gives us an opportunity to optimize the truck. So optimizing the truck meaning if you call in and you say, hey, I have a washer, I have a dryer, then that truck that we put out specifically picks up washers and dryers. If you say I have certain types of furniture, then that truck that we send out picks up those types of furnitures. We have a better ability to optimize the truck, so we're not wasting fuel, we're not wasting labor, and we are, as you would say, efficient. Like I said, it also aligns us with the cities regionally as it pertains to our area. Strengthening penalties. Our penalties are kind of light as it pertains to illegal dumping. So strengthening the penalties that align with the region of $500 to $2,500 for anyone that is caught dumping illegal items within the city. Civil enforcement tools. We do have inspectors in the Waste Management Division, giving them the ability to issue civil citations, and so that we can expedite the removal and at the owner's expense. The public education campaign, putting together a campaign that is wrapped around letting the residents know that, hey, we are going to go to this advanced scheduling system. This is what's considered items that you can put out. These are considered items that you can't put out. And just putting out making it a real campaign for at least the next fiscal year, right, to give everyone an opportunity to understand that we are going to this advanced system.
Makes sense. It does. It really does.
Like I said earlier about some of the operational controls, being able to control how we put out items. We do have representatives answering the phones. And then being able to put in a portal to where they can put online requests in, that would help us in advance and be able to optimize, especially with no less than 24 hours notice. An administrative fee, a $25 administrative fee for any resident that puts out their bulk, not considered illegal dumping, but more so putting out their bulk pickup without scheduling, or if we have to go back and pick it up. So for example, if we're on a Friday route and they call and say, hey, I got bulk pickup, and we try to do a same day, then it's a $25 administrative fee just to send the truck back over there, because there is a cost to that's a realized cost. And shrinking the allowable cubic yards. Right now, our ordinance says an 8 by 10 by 8. That is huge. A 6 by 6 by 6 is a more reasonable amount of waste to be able to control one resident. An 8 by 10 by 8 is essentially almost a move out or an exit or eviction. That is essentially what it is. The typical resident is not going to put out an 8 by 10 by 8. That's a lot of waste. And maintain strict guidelines for contractors and any construction debris, renovations. If you are a contractor in the city and you are doing renovations for a resident, then 9 times out of 10, most contractors, they charge you for disposal, right, and they take that disposal and they actually take it and dispose of it properly. Same thing I said about the illegal dumping and empowering our code enforcement, but permitting flexibility when it's natural disasters. So for hurricanes, tornadoes, those things we'll have the flexibility to be able to respond to, because at the end of the day, we still want our residents to feel, comfortable, and that we are making sound judgments. We just want to be able to make sure that we are doing it in a systematic manner. Next steps. Get nervous sometimes, but the next steps is what we are doing tonight. Presenting this to council so that you can make an informed decision about our scheduling, the realized cost of the program, and enforcement opportunities that we do have going forward. The next step would be us drafting an ordinance, and we do have somewhat of an ordinance to be drafted. We prepare an ordinance so that you agree with the language, and we get that information out. And then, like I said, the public education campaign. Putting out the word, giving residents enough time to get used to hearing it, advanced scheduling, and then deciding on an implementation date and then execute. The last thing about advanced scheduling. Advanced scheduling is really optimization, and it's really route optimization. And it's routing. It's planning the routes ahead of time, planning the labor ahead of time, knowing exactly where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, how many routes we're going to, how many loads we're going to pick up, where our break-off point is, and how much we're going to dispose of. Timing and coordination means syncing everything together. How many trucks do we need? How long does it take? And as we dial in what we do, we'll know exactly how long it takes to do an average stop, pickups, and disposal. And our collection execution is being able to, one, improve the blight of the city without having waste, bulky waste just sitting around on the curbs in the right of way, and also being able to know exactly what we are picking up, because in the description you'll explain to us what you're picking up and where we're going to take it to dispose of. So, with that being said, I'll leave it open for questions.
Councilman Hugo.
Yes.
Oh, you next. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
So I'm all for this with a caveat. I'll give you a personal example because I got a personal situation. So the 7 houses that live around me put all of their bulk waste on my property. And that's okay. We've agreed with the other households. You put it here, you put it there, you're good to go. I'm happy to take the information around to all those houses and explain to them, when you use my property, you're going to call ahead or go online ahead. But when you all come, how are you going to know when there's what looks like illegal dumping and it's 4 households worth of stuff in one location? So I guess I would ask you, as you're writing the ordinance, to think about those, because I'm sure I'm not the only guy in all of Portsmouth that provides access to neighbors that don't live on kind of the main route and offer their neighbors the opportunity to stack stuff in one location, which hopefully saves you guys some work. But I don't want to get cited, and importantly, I want to make sure that the rest of the neighbors understand what the rules are going to be going forward. Because if I got to tell them you're done using my property and you got to do something on your own property, they're not going to like it, and it's really going to create a mess for you guys to come and pick it up. That's a request and a comment as you're drafting your ordinance. Secondly, I'm interested to know, based on the fact that I'm sure you got a lot of history that shows on the average day you do 40 pickups or whatever the number on average is. So you're spending over $900,000 a year today doing bulk pickup. Do you have an estimate of what the annual cost would be if you go implement what we're talking about? Because again, I think it's a great idea. I think it's the right thing to do. I'd like to go to the civic leagues and to our neighbors and say, hey, the reason we're doing this ain't just to make you mad, the reason we're doing this is twofold. One, because we're sick and tired of contractors throwing their crap in piles all around our city. And two, we're actually doing this because it's going to save the city money in terms of labor and equipment costs. But to understand, are we talking about half, 2/3, 1/3? Well, I don't know what the number is, but I bet you guys can predict it. It would be helpful when you come back with the ordinance to have done a little history and figure out what are we likely to save by implementing.
Vice Mayor Moody.
I would say the third thing is beautification, too, as you ride around the city. And Brandon Lane's a good example. In fact, Mr. Roberts, Brandon Lane now, I don't see any illegal dumping since we erected the signs. And I don't know if we enforced any of the fines. There was evidence of the people who were doing the illegal dumping.
I think that had a lot to do with it.
And many of them were construction people that hopefully were fined. But whatever, it has worked. Brandon Lane is clear. I'm 100% supportive of this. I think we need to get a handle on it for the reasons that have been mentioned. Obviously saving money, beautification, environmental, and getting the word out to construction people that Portsmouth is not a dump.
Sure.
So,
Councilman Dotson, then Councilman Tillage and Councilwoman Bryan.
So I have the same situation that Mr. Hugel has, is that neighbors use my property to put a light out. So there's more than one of us that do that. The system that I have at my son's house in Orlando is very similar to the ones, except they're limited to a 4x4. They can have more than one 4x4, so the trucks can easily pick it up in there too. And the trash men there are adamant about not picking it up. If you don't have it right, they will leave it in front of your house for 2 months. And it would be really helpful, though, if there was some way of communicating it to the owners at the time. Of what's wrong, why isn't it picked up, why are they being fined at the time. I also know that so if the driver could somehow inform the person, it would also be helpful too as to how they could best package it, because calling in may not get a solution. I found that out down there too. Gosh, there was one more item I had to say. Code enforcement also is overworked. I know in your proposal you're saying that to authorize code enforcement, but I think it would be also wise to consider other methods than code enforcement, as their department, I don't know, has the bulk or manpower in order to help you enforcement. So you may think they can enforce it and they may get the authority, but do they have the manpower to do it? And that would restrict us from implementing the plan effectively. Thank you.
Councilman Tillage, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So I understand the why behind wanting to implement the schedule pickup and things of that nature. My question is pertaining to the solutions for the illegal dumping.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in this picture that's underneath this, I guess the MLK, it looks like. What is going to be our strategy or solutions to addressing this? Because I understand the scheduling, but that's not going to stop a contractor who is going to dump it anyway.
Right.
So how are we going to address that part?
We use a process similar to what we did on Brandon, where we go and get it. All right, we put more signage out, but we work with our police department to put some technology there just to take your picture and take you to court.
Absolutely.
Right.
Good. Yeah, and that's what I want to hear, because I think, to Vice Mayor Moody's point, that has definitely helped in that area, at least. And also, I think, I don't know if there's any technology along Cavalier Boulevard and Missy Elliott, but I've noticed that over the last 12, 15 months, there's been a lot less. So it must be more, I don't know if it's more riding around, more police patrol or something, but I definitely think we need to include some more technology.
Councilwoman Bryan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Roberts. This was an excellent presentation. You included a lot of detail that I had not considered, and I I think there's a lot of evidence here that really makes a strong argument of why we need to change. And I love the fact that we have this coinciding with the switch from regular trash pickup, where we'll be using AI sortation to increase recycling. So we have a really great opportunity to present all of the environmental factors, the other factors mentioned, of course, but we have a really strong message here about how we are paying attention to environmental needs. These pictures that Councilman Tillage just showed, even if you pick up that mess, there's going to be debris that remains and gets into our waterways. And so I love that your presentation includes messaging. I think we have all seen that even with the last couple weeks since we've started sending out blue and black bins on the same day, that people are still confused, and there's a lot of distrust that we're not really recycling, when we all know, because we've seen it, that we really are, and that it's far better than anything that we had been doing before. And I love that this fits with that piece. So thank you for a really great presentation and bringing those arguments to us. I think it's so important that we tell people what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Oh, and the last thing I'll say, because we're running short on time, but the optimization program, so right now at HRT, Hampton Roads Transit, they have a route optimization program. And the whole purpose of it is, to your point, efficiencies. The same thing that you're doing with our trash pickup, I think is the right way to go. And it is going to take education, but it's going to take all of us to help with that education. I think, we'll have to decide what the best opportunities are to educate our communities. But thanks, man. It was a very detailed presentation. And, at the end of the day, in Portsmouth, we've got to change some of the things we do. We've got to change our behaviors. If we're going to make our city the city we desire, we've got to get everybody online. And it's going to be, trust me, it's going to be a little pain and heartburn.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, change isn't always going to be a happy thing. But optimization is what we're seeking, efficiencies, and ultimately that will show up, I do believe, because I've seen it happen. You just talked about Brandon Lane and other places. We have made a difference, and you and your team have made a difference, so we appreciate it. Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. You did a great job. That was very informative. You forgot how to pronounce implementation, but other than that, you did a great job, man. I do appreciate it. It was a really good presentation. My final thing tonight is the agenda review. We have 4 items on tonight's agenda: 1 public hearing, 2 ordinances, and 1 resolution. The public hearing is to consider revocation of a use permit for Bar 9 due to documented non-compliance with conditions of approval. 2 ordinances are granted, or grant-related, rather. The total of $4,275,433.33. 1 accepts and appropriates $25,433.33 from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality to support the city's litter and prevention and recycling programs. The other is a $4,250,000 grant in state funding for sanitary sewer pump station upgrades. The final item is a resolution establishing the official city council meeting schedule for 2026. This concludes all that we have for the public work session tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And we do.
Can I add along with what Mr. Carter is saying? I know that council wants to go to consent agenda, and I'm going to be working with the city attorney's office to bring language to you all to adjust your rules and procedures for dealing with consent agenda. Tonight, because it's a very short agenda, we're going to do it the basic way that we've been doing it. But in January, we will be bringing you language, and we'll probably provide it to you ahead of time. So if you have any comments, please let us know. But we will be bringing that to you in January to get your opinion on adjusting your agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we do have a need to go into a closed session, so Vice Mayor, if you would read the closed session motion.
Yes. I move to go into a closed meeting, A, pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A8, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically regarding zoning enforcement, and B, pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A7, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, specifically regarding City of Portsmouth versus Swenson Restaurant Group and all Portsmouth Circuit Court case number CL 2500 1599-00.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Hugo?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We are in closed.
Move that each council member certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and two, only such public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Hugo?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
Thank you.
This closed meeting is adjourned.